Well, hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. I've been away for a little while now because I've been re-evaluating what I'm doing with YouTube. YouTube has been getting more and more aggressive, or at least the robots have anyway, in censoring and locking me out, and also giving me strikes for music which is in the public domain, and I have to go through all the hassle of doing counterclaims. And a couple back, several of them back, refused to accept my counterclaims of being using the public domain music. And the last one I had was to do with some public domain music that I had used in the movie that we have just finished. I was doing a video to show what we're doing with that, and then I uploaded it so that I could then do the necessary legal processes and things, and I got struck with that. I went to the trouble of contacting the author of this public domain music, who very quickly and nicely fixed it up. But then I uploaded another version, a more complete version of the movie, and I got another strike for the same piece of music. And so I'm really getting thoroughly annoyed at YouTube. They're making it so hard for their creators to actually create that you just want to look for other platforms. But at my age, I can't be bothered going to any other platform because this is one I'm used to, and I can't be bothered starting again. So I'm re-evaluating. That means a number of topics that I've been thinking about have gone by the wayside, and I may pick them up again in the future. But this one I want to look at to do with our world, and I want to look at how the world is not as solid as you would think. Now, in the past I've talked about a small planet theory, that our planet was smaller, that it expanded. I've looked at where the rain came from the flood, the Great Flood. And if you look on, do a search for Mr. Finkel of the British Museum and a cuneiform tablet, the world's oldest map actually has directions of how to get from Babylon, which is in Iraq, or Iran, Iraq, to Noah's Ark. And so I know that this planet has not been the same as it always has been, and it is still expanding and doing funny things. Well, the first time I heard about sunspots was many years ago, and I didn't pay much attention to that. But because of the quarantining that we were forced to undergo, it came to my attention that we were in for 2019, exactly when they locked us down. We were in the great minimum of the solar great minimum. Now, what's that? Our north and south pole wobble around a little bit. They're not constant. There's magnetic north, which shifts all over the place, and then there's true north, which is a sort of a standard average of all of that. This year it's been doing a really big wobble, and I wondered, oh, that's interesting. And the great solar minimum is when the sun has a north and south pole, but every 11 years they come together and then flip, and the north becomes south and the south becomes north. That's called, and they've been monitoring that at least 24 times. So 24 times 11, that's how long they've been monitoring it. They've noticed that the poles are like this, and then they go down and down and down until they're right fighting each other before they go through each other and then end up at the other poles. Well, right now, this year, at the moment, we're right in the middle of that 11-year cycle. From the quarantining, that was the minimum, and I wonder whether the nefarious powers that be may have figured out that we're a little bit more gullible when things are quiet, when it's the great maximum, when the poles are fully north-south. But as they come here, our electronics this year all go wonky. You get lots of things destroying. Your Wi-Fi doesn't work, your connection doesn't work, your computers break down because they're sensitive to the electromagnetic fields generated by those poles shifting and going through. We're right in the Great Maximum, they call it, right there. And now this month, I noticed there was a bridge that I walked across that started to go up and down a little bit. Now, I was a trampolinist when I was young, and so I used to bounce up and down and do somersaults and twists and all the rest of it. So I got very sensitive as to up and down and where I am spatially in the space. Very sensitive indeed, because when you do it several million times in your sporting career, you get pretty sensitive. Well, I started to feel that these bridges were going up and down. Then over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the bridges that are crossing over highways, they also started to move. And I thought, well, that's a little interesting. Bridges are metal and they can flex, so things were moving. Then I noticed as I was walking through the street after a week of that even the street started to move up and down just slightly, and it was giving me a little bit of a, what do you call it? It was freaking me out a little bit, thinking, am I going mad or what? And then this last week, it was really getting violent, and then I started to feel the ground moving even when I was standing still. I started to comment to some friends of mine who work with electricity, who motor rewinders, to get their concept on it. And they assured me that I wasn't crazy, that there probably was something in it with the electromagnetic fields and things. Then lo and behold, on my telephone, a feed came in to say, Google very nicely notified me that we were in an August moon. Now, an August moon, there are different, you've heard of the red moon and the blue moon, and there's other moons. Well, this August moon is a moon where it comes extremely close to the planet. In fact, the Native American Indians used to call this the sturgeon moon, because during August the sturgeon fish were extremely easy to catch because the moon was sort of sedating them according to their understanding of things. Now, I considered that the moon is close, so during this August of 2024 we're at the great solar maximum, and we have on top of that an August moon, and on top of that we have some meteor showers that are starting to hit the Earth right at the moment. So there's a lot happening in our solar system. Now, just a few days ago, Japan had a fairly large earthquake. Iran or Iraq or one of those in the Middle East have just had a big one also. So all of these factors are coming together to say, hey, maybe the great solar maximum and the moon are acting together to do something funny. So I decided to do a bit of an experiment. I hung a hammer on a pole, a flexible pole, to see what would happen, and disappointing results in that. I didn't get anything. It moved to start with, but after about 5 or 10 minutes it also synchronized with what I was feeling of the up and down, so you couldn't see anything. Then I put the hammer on a piece of elastic, thinking maybe the metal was affecting it, and it did the same. It went up and down very slowly according to what I was feeling for about 5 minutes, until it also stabilized and it didn't seem to do anything. So I thought, those weren't great successes at all. And so the following morning I was sitting in the patio contemplating, and then I saw a thread hanging down off the table, and it was doing some funny, strange wobbling, and I thought, oh, is there a bit of a draft in here or something? But I didn't think it would do it that much, and it was moving it straight. Normally when you have a draft, it snakes because of the air pressure, but it was doing it straight, and it would go up and then stay there for a while and then come back down again and go the opposite way and all over the place. And so I decided to shield it from any potential draft with a board, and that it still seemed to move. So I got a plastic container and put that around it to avoid any draft, and it started to move as well, or continued to move in sync with what I was feeling. And I then put some covers on to make sure that there was absolutely no draft, and it continued to do the same. And if I show you on there the video, it's there. I also noticed that there were other pieces of string in the patio which were also moving very minutely but sideways. Now, considering that the movement is lateral, it's sideways, but I was feeling up and down. If you get a wave when it comes in, there's a certain sideways move as it goes through before the next one. So there is a little bit, just a minor bit of sideways movement, but it's mostly up and down. So it showed me that yes, there are some weird things happening. Now there's a dose of diarrhea going around over the last week or three while this is happening. As I've explained before, most people would say it's viral, you've got a tummy bug, but we've now established that viruses don't exist at all, and so therefore what could be causing this diarrhea? And I've now encountered at least 4 or 5 people in the last 2 days who have had a bout of it as well. And I'm wondering whether the electromagnetic fields that the great maximum and the August moon are coming together to make people a little bit nauseous, and their intestines, their digestive tract are saying, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to process food at the moment because we don't know why this planet is moving. They don't sense it or feel it, but their brain somehow detects it with their these electromagnetic fields. So this diarrhea could be an electromagnetically induced phenomena. So that's something very interesting at the moment. I've never experienced such extreme movements. It's like being on a little boat, or like a constant slow earthquake. In New Zealand we get a lot of those, but only for short periods of time. Well, this is going days on end, day and night, particularly at midday and midnight when the moon and sun are opposite. It's affecting it, and then on the others between that 6 hours between, it's about half, and then it's a little bit less on the quarters. And the Earth is not very is not very solid, really. If Bogota is at about 10,000 feet, and so there's a lot of material that can compress and expand to these sorts of forces. And on the top, Bogota used to be a lake bed, and so it's spongy mud. Water is only about a couple of meters down, so we have buildings leaning and falling over because it's so soft and spongy. So this tends to exaggerate the phenomenon, and we're also very close to the equator, which then means that as this comes around, we are now in direct alignment with the sun and the moon and the center of the planet. Down further down in the south and up in the north, it won't have quite as much effect because it's curved, but right at the equator, the pulling and pushing, pulling and rippling of the planet's surface is actually quite a lot. And if you look at this video, you can see, judging by the minimal sideways movement, imagine how much we're actually going up and down. I feel it's something between, somewhere around the 10 to 20 centimeter mark. I wouldn't be even surprised if it was as much as a meter. When you think that buildings of, say, 50 stories tall will swing 2 to 4 meters sideways quite easily, well, for us to go up and down that much on the planet's surface, spongy, boggy lake bed on the equator, is not far-fetched, and I'm definitely feeling it. So I'll leave that thought with you. The planet is not as solid as they would like you to think. Oh, and why won't the seismographs pick it up? Because it's so slow, it won't trigger anything, and the seismographs are all going up and down in sync with the planet's movement, so it probably won't register. If it is registering, they're not telling us. So there's an interesting phenomenon happening at the moment. So if you're feeling a little bit off color, a little bit off balance, a little bit ill, well, give it another month and it should be right again. So have a great time.